see on I think from LinkedIn. So hello everybody, welcome everybody who's tuning in into the session. Today, together with myself and Simo, we're gonna go over LinkedIn, and particularly the social selling part of LinkedIn. If you have something to do with typically go to market or maybe some other space, essentially if your audience is on LinkedIn, then you definitely should be spending more time on LinkedIn, communicating, whether that's as a founder on your founder journey, how you're building a business, trying to talk about the pains that you're solving for the customers, right? So and doing that publicly. But like what we're going to be discussing in this particular session is really social selling. So it would be good to hear from anybody who's tuning in right now, whether you are tuning in from YouTube or LinkedIn, where you're coming from, where you're tuning in from, essentially. It's good to understand, the crowd, because there are some sort of dynamics when it comes to, let's say, Europe versus the US in terms of maybe a bit in terms of the audience. So yeah, it would be good to know where you're tuning in from. Just you could put it in the comments, and if you have a particular challenge that you would like us to address during the everything that we're going to be discussing, feel free to ask the question right away, and we're going to pull your question from the audience, so we're going to tackle that. So yeah, quick intro. So I'm Frank Saunders. I run a company called SalesForge. We help companies to build sales pipeline through an outbound motion. So we do that through typical sort of email motion that you have in outbound. So think of it like cold email. We just do it a lot more programmatically, and also we do that also on LinkedIn. So the idea is naturally you combine the two channels where you typically generate quite a bit of a pipeline. We see a reply rates typically anywhere between 20 to 40% range when it comes to replies, and that's across using these both channels in tandem, where you're tackling messaging, targeting, and a bunch of other things. So don't want to kind of go too deep into it, but yeah, over to you, Simo.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you for organizing this webinar. And I'm super excited to discuss social selling. I know it's a hot topic, and we know we use social media every day in our daily life, and but the same buyers are also doing a professional job, so could qualify for being leads prospects. And so why not leveraging the social media in order to grow your audience for your business? And that's I believe a very hot topic, but harder to do than to say. And we have been chatting about this topic a lot with Frank over the last months, and sharing our insights, and we just discussed that it would make sense to organize a webinar here. Share with you what we learned, and maybe gather some feedback and insight from you too. In terms of background, maybe, so I'm the founder and CEO of Folk. Folk is the new generation CRM. We are connected to your world, to LinkedIn, to WhatsApp, to your email, to your calendar, to enrichment tool, and so on. We bring everything in one place and help you leverage this data with AI in order to just be more proficient. So to feel your CRM is doing the work for you rather than the other way. But I won't be long here as well. We have 4,000 businesses clients today. We're growing very fast, and we know that a lot of our users are engaging, embracing social selling. So it's a topic of importance to us.
Makes sense. So like if nobody has ever bumped into Folk as a CRM, so I assume you do have a bunch of kind of feature sets, features that help you to do social selling a bit. Is that correct to assume?
That's absolutely correct. We do believe that leads are basically leads journey is basically multi-channel today. They can be on social media. You can chat with them by email, by call, by SMS, by WhatsApp, all over the place. And we are just the place where you can consolidate all this data in one single system, if that makes sense.
So maybe a trick question to you: what's your favorite channel then? Because you do quite a few.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I do think I won't reply to that question specifically. I would say that every channel has a specificities for a step in the lead journey. WhatsApp is very casual and very good once the list is closed and you want to have like a very personal relationship. LinkedIn is great because open rate and reply rate are higher. Emails is amazing for volume, basically. So yeah, I would say that every channel, and we can even add other channels like calling. Like I'm a strong believer in calling, and it's very costly to call because you have a human that needs to do it, but it's very effective. So I think what really matters from a channel perspective, like to understand deeply the benefits of each channel and to apply them soundly to the different stages of your business and of your lead journey. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I typically have a fight in my head, I guess, when I guess think more about social. Yeah, it's between LinkedIn and on WhatsApp. So also a big fan of WhatsApp itself. But yeah, WhatsApp is not something that you typically naturally scale. It's more of a maybe bottom funnel of an activity or a channel that you would use. All right. So just again, a quick reminder to everybody. So whoever is joining in right now across LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever, if you have a specific question that you would love us to tackle to help you do a better job at social selling, me and Simo are pretty well trained on this, let's call it topic, and we've been in this space for quite some time. And maybe the best way to describe this for quite some time is that my, for example, LinkedIn profile is about 15 years old. So it's a very old profile, and there's a lot of activity that has happened across different jobs, predominantly in a sort of sales function, actually connecting with a bunch of prospects. But doing social selling is something that I've been doing probably for the last 5 years, and I think it has accelerated with every year. And my typical kind of velocity when it comes to just generally posting is typically Monday to Friday. I would post once a day, and covering kind of different bits, right, as a founder. Maybe a question to you, Simo, like how frequently do you post right now?
Yeah, so basically I frame it slightly differently. I try to make sure that I can bring that I'm just discussing of topics that are really relevant to me at the moment for my business. Things that I just learned or things that I just discovered or like some trend in terms of revenue. And knowing that like people don't really care when you just talk about like your features or your company news, except if they are like really important ones. So most of the time I try just to share learnings, basically things that I've learned that I think would be helpful to someone. And there are some weeks where I'm showing up like 5 times maybe on LinkedIn, and some weeks where it's less. But I'll try to optimize for like the authenticity of the content I'm sharing.
Gotcha. So more so trying to educate the audience based on what you've learned as a founder. I have a slightly different take on this. I think I picked it up from a person named Will Aitken. Some people may be familiar. He used to be an account exec for a company called Proposify. Now he does a lot of videos on LinkedIn. But ultimately, the way that I look at generally at social platform, it's a social platform, so people come and learn. But at the same time, they also want to be entertained as well. So I typically say what I do is I do edutainment. So I'm trying to on one hand, educate based on my learnings, what's happening, etc. But also at the same time, trying to entertain people. So we're going to look at that in a lot more depth in a bit. But we do have this just one slide that we prepared for everybody, just to kind of have a really good structure, I guess, in place. Before I'm going to start sharing this slide, one question to you, Simo. How old is your profile actually, roughly?
So roughly my profile might be a bit less than 10 years old, but I've been accelerating maybe in the last 5 years as well.
Okay, makes sense. No, just for everybody to know, because everybody's profile is very different, right? Some people just joined on LinkedIn whatever a year ago, maybe this year, whatever. And so there are when you look at the profile, you're like, damn, they have a lot of followers or whatever. But that's because you accumulated that for such a long period of time. It's not something that maybe came necessarily in the last year or so. So these are really the 5 topics we would love to cover together. So again, if anybody in the audience have any questions on this or something else, do let us know. And then we'll also showcase something on a LinkedIn profile. So we're going to use my LinkedIn profile to kind of dive into different examples of what sort of works, maybe what doesn't, but probably more on sort of what works. But really, the first thing that we're going to take a stab at is what's social selling. So maybe Simo, you want to start with what's social selling for you?
Yeah, thank you, Frank. So I'll try simple here. I would say that
Yeah.
social selling is like leveraging social in very natural way of interacting with potential prospects in order to create a relationship. So
Uh-huh.
that the moment where you engage in a more, I'd say, transactional discussion, you have already built trust.
Mm.
And I do believe that like trust is so like crucial when you're trying to close a deal. Um, Even more in a world where there is so much noise. There is so much noise. Like we're receiving tens of emails every day,
Yeah.
LinkedIn requests, message on LinkedIn on every channel, phone calls, and we don't know exactly where to invest our attention, basically, especially when it's a cold approach. So,
Mm.
so starting by building a relationship in a more, I would say, casual way, a
Yeah.
more authentic way, by engaging on content topics that are of mutual interest on social media is a very good way to start creating the relationship before switching to like a more traditional sales approach.
Yeah. So for me, yeah, it's kind of similar, sort of building the authority in the space, right? Talking about the pains that you're solving for your ideal customer profile. But at the same time, one thing that I typically like to do is naturally I sort of connect to a bunch of people on a weekly basis. So these ideal customers, and I don't necessarily have to message them, but like essentially build up your network within your ideal customer sort of profile. Sort of build up that network, right? So you keep building it on a weekly basis, so you keep reaching out to your ideal customers. You don't necessarily have to DM them and anything, but the reason why you're connecting with them, right, you're trying to make them follow sort of your content, right? So so that's something that you should do definitely on a weekly basis, but it's a sort of one to many, I guess, approach when it comes to educating the market or the audience, right, about the pains that you're solving for them.
I, I
Right, so
I'm completely aligned with this approach, and I do it in a slightly different way. Basically,
yeah.
I have automation
Uh-huh.
whenever someone like signs up on our website,
Yeah.
uh, I add the person on LinkedIn. So I
Uh-huh.
add every sign up that sign up to folk on LinkedIn until a point where we had too many sign up per day that I
Yeah.
wasn't able to automate that anymore. So now I have like a qualification on
Yeah.
this app, and I add the most interesting ones. But
Yeah.
at the end, you end up with by making sure that like the leads that were interested in your business or eventually that became customers are in your LinkedIn user base. So
Yep.
they will get access to the content that you share. It's a
Mm.
very free, it's an extremely free way to make sure people that you actually care about a lot for your business are aware of your latest news and what content is top of mind for you.
Yeah, it makes sense. One of the things I do right now, because I'm already reaching the 30,000 sort of limit when it comes to connections, I'm being very mindful also the who am I connecting with, right? So these individuals have to come from the right markets, right? The right ICPs, titles, etc. So I'm becoming very picky. I wasn't that picky sort of 5 years ago. Who am I connecting with? So I used to connect with a bunch of people, but right now I'm trying to curate my network and trying to really connect with people only that kind of makes sense, right? So we're adding a value to each other. And the one thing that you mentioned, so yeah, definitely a super powerful workflow there, like connecting with people, right? So the ones that sign up to your website, like immediately, we see like a huge definitely impact on the conversion rate. The other thing that we also do, and you probably do that as well, but if you collect the phone number, so mobile phone number, we actually send a WhatsApp message like immediately to a person on inbound there as well. And that actually results in at least, I think, a 10x relative lift in reply rate versus sending, for example, even an email. But yeah, you guys do also WhatsApp, so this is why I'm kind of also thinking about WhatsApp there. But the
Love
one
that.
thing that we do on social, maybe not social side, but like getting that network is, so we don't connect with every person that signs up necessarily. That's maybe my sales team does that, but what we do is we specifically target the website visitors, where we de-anonymize them, right? So in the US, you can do that, so you can see who's coming from the US market. You can see what's the LinkedIn profile. Then we qualify that lead, trying to see if it's an ICP, and if they didn't sign up within a particular time frame, then yes, we would go and we would connect with them on LinkedIn. And I would ask, so I always say, once you connect, so I always say, don't have any note in the connection request, but just simply ask a question after you connected. Hey, I was wondering whether you were looking into this sort of thing, right? So let's say the pain that you're solving, or I was wondering whether you have this pain, right? So and it just happens to be, that we connected straight after you visited the website. And then people would ask me actually quite frequently, did you use the anonymized data? And I was like, yeah, that's what we do. And we do use
and I do believe that like this links back more largely to like a thesis in go-to-market, which is the just-in-time, because you can spray and pray and hope that people will have this pain. But if you are able to identify a signal, for example, a website visit with any other type of signal, it makes you way more likely to be relevant at the moment when you reach out to that person. So way more likely to like capture their attention.
Yeah, the other way, that just maybe on the building the network part. So we have some lead magnets also on the website. So for example, if you go to agentfrank.ai, you can get a unique email by our AI agent. But one of the two fields that we ask there is what's your email address, so your business email address, so we can access your website and kind of have a look, get the context about your site, what you do. And the second thing that we ask is what's your LinkedIn URL. Then we go and access the LinkedIn data essentially and try and figure out, what is the context going to be built about you as a person, so we can craft like a really great email about you. And then we add some more other data points. But one thing that I do is, let's say when the person kind of gets that email, I immediately go on LinkedIn and I would just connect and ask, hey, how was the email? And it works like fantastically well. People think that it's actually AI agent reaching out, but I'm just doing it manually. You don't have to honestly automate, I think, every time everything. I guess it depends on lead volume and stuff like that. But yeah, that's kind of from maybe an inbound kind of standpoint. But one thing I want to also mention maybe on the so we're discussing like social selling kind of marketing, like looking at it as like one-to-many approach, right? So and talk about various pain, etc. But yeah, you're warming up the audience, you're building up the brand authority, and then eventually, yes, you'll reach out to them, right? So in one way or the other, but that massively helps with the conversion rate. So your reply rates go massively through the roof when you have a strong social presence. So it actually helps your outbound motion quite a bit. So you can look at this. There's also saying in the space like inbound led outbound, right? So where you do warm up the audience on LinkedIn or other social media channels, and then you're reaching out to them, and then your conversion rate is much higher. So typically what happens, let's say my sales rep would reach out to one of our ideal customers, and in a lot of cases they will say, yeah, I know Frank, or I've been following Frank, etc. So it's just to give you a few examples why this is also important to be always in touch with your customers.
100%. I relate to that 100%. But I think it brings us to like the second point on how to create a content machine.
Mm-hmm.
To hear Frank, like you mentioned, you're posting like roughly once a day.
Yes.
How do you come up with the topics? How do you come up with the post? How do you write them? Like we want to know your secret sauce.
So a lot of people think I'm using a ghostwriter. It's a very frequent question, I guess. Do you use a ghostwriter? Is somebody writing posts for you? And the answer is no, I don't write. Nobody writes my posts. The only thing that somebody else is helping me out is sometimes I would publish a video on so it will have a scene, say, from Wolf of Wall Street. So we're gonna have a look at that in a bit. But like somebody would prepare for me a video where instead of the typical stuff that happens in the scene, we would kind of use 11 Labs then to talk about a bit like a bit about Salesforce. So, but I would say we would try and so like we invest a bit of time into that, right? So it's not that easy to do actually. So it will take us maybe like a day or two to assemble that sort of asset, and then so we would try and go viral maybe like once or twice a month. So definitely we have this sort of not a goal. I wouldn't say a goal, but we just try and attempt to go viral once or twice a month, and that's it, right? So we would kind of prepare like a really good post that we would work together. So it would be me and our head of growth and our head of YouTube. So essentially, person on the YouTube side of things, the growth person will try and figure out how do we go viral, and then me trying to chip in, trying to I guess resonate with the audience a bit. So that's kind of from just a topic on virality. But generally speaking, every day when I wake up, I have this sort of little reminder in my calendar, like at 9 a.m. What is it that I should maybe write today about? And it kind of correlates with, for example, so we do some. We do roll out quite a few products or features. So what we try and do, it maybe like try and dilute maybe the feature announcements or whatever, something that we're announcing, like to do that like let's say once a week. So essentially one of the 5 posts Sometimes I also do Saturday, Sunday, but typically it's Monday to Friday. But one of the 5 posts will be about some sort of a product update. And the reason why we talk about a product update, we try and kind of, do it as edutaining as you can. But because we roll out so much, it's hard to avoid talking about some sort of a feature release. But I'm trying to talk it from an angle of a sales rep, how I would use that and what sort of pain maybe it solves for me. So today, for example, it was about a particular sort of feature that I was talking about, and that feature just is a feature where you aggregate LinkedIn messages and emails in one thread for a single contact. I bet you do that as well, right, Sima? You
Yes.
aggregate, yeah.
Yes.
So in the world of outbound, maybe etc., it's not that sort of frequent to see a tool that does a lot of kind of programmatic scaling, and then you can have like hundreds and thousands of prospects, and you can nicely see the thread, etc. It's quite difficult to pull it off. And of course you can do that in CRM, etc. But that's something that we wanted to talk about it because a lot of customers buy typically a solution for that. But in our case, it's just a free feature. So we wanted to say that something that you would pay typically $100 to $200 a month for this sort of tool, you don't have to pay for it anymore because you can get it for free in our software. So sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't make sense, right? But so that will be, let's say, one post. So one post per week, maybe I would dedicate just to a product announcement. The other ones, it kind of depends what's happening in your life. So for example, next week I'll be in Berlin. I'll be attending SaaS Week in Berlin, and there's a lot of events, right? So what I want to do is I want to signal to the market, right, to my audience that I'm in Berlin. And what typically happens is that I will get like, I don't know, up to 5 people that will message me saying, yeah, I would love to meet you next week, right? So this is what I'm doing, because I'm not, I could definitely reach out to everybody that I have on LinkedIn and Sales Navigator, right, and reach out to them. Or I could just write a nice post, hey, I'm going to be in Berlin next week. This is what I'm up to, and if you want to connect, let's do that. So it depends on, I guess, where I am or what I'm up to. And then, yeah, so kind of what you mentioned about sharing learnings. Yeah, we would do that as well. That would be maybe one post a week. So see, I'm trying to. I don't talk about the same things, right? So the topics are definitely very, very different there.
And how do you balance, like, there is a question from Osama, how do you balance quality versus quantity?
Good question. So if it feels a bit like ChatGPT-ish, right? You can just look at the post. If it feels very ChatGPT-ish, just don't do it, right? Because people just seeing so much AI stuff out there, right? But I can tell you some of the most successful, actually, LinkedIn, let's call them influencers, are actually a lot of the copy, the LinkedIn post is actually written by ChatGPT. So they've built they've fed so much context as to how do they want those LinkedIn posts to look like, that the posts actually come out really well. But you have to kind of really engineer that. So you can really write really good posts on LinkedIn that drive a ton of engagement using ChatGPT, but you have to engineer and with a lot of context. Now, how do you balance it? It's a good question. So I typically spend about 30 minutes to an hour maybe on that content piece per day. So at least, like, let's say 30 minutes to prepare a post. So yes, there is a sort of an input that's expected from, I think, anybody, right? To write a really good post. It's not something that you can just put together like in 5 minutes. Then trying to find the right image maybe for it, right? So you don't necessarily need to have an image. But like, I typically would do like an image. I would also, I would upload an image to the but balancing act is definitely very, very tricky, I would say, for sure. But if you feel like you're just doing volume, then I would typically stop, right? So if I don't feel like I've added any value, probably the easiest way to look at it is this post sort of actionable to any degree, or did I have a, would I laugh a bit, would I make somebody's day kind of bright? So for example, the post, let's say that I'm in Berlin, I'm going to Berlin, right? So it is actionable to quite a few people that are in Berlin or are flying into Berlin, right, to meet up. So there is some sort of action that could be taken if you're actually going to Berlin. But the smartest people in the industry would typically say, If the post is not actionable, try and not post it. If it's essentially try and make every post as actionable as you can, and and have like no ask essentially, and that will drive quite a high engagement.
Yeah, I'm quite aligned. I would say that like like giving content away giving value away for free is the best way to capture value on your end as well. And I reply like a second question here is that how to get your post to the right audience, your ideal customer on LinkedIn. I do think like the best way to approach that is by creating some content and topical authority and defining very clearly what are the topics on which you'll end up posting. On my side, it's mostly like company building and sales, which are topics that are of importance to my ICP, to my target persona. And so by being obsessively focused on these two topics, company building and sales, I end up naturally attracting the right people. And I don't do paid campaigns. On my own post, we do various type of paid campaigns as a company, and I do imagine Forge do as well on different channels from Google Ads, LinkedIn, Meta, and YouTube, and so on. But on my personal profile, I only post like organic content, and that's also the magic of this channel is that basically it's free. Just making sure that I'm targeting the right audience by a combination of first content and topical authority, talking about the same subject and defining them very clearly and making sure these are subjects that are relevant to your potential customers. And second, by building an audience of the right customers. But I think we covered pretty well the second question. Maybe we can get to the third one. Do you have, Frank, some tactics to amplify your content?
Yes. You're going to touch on the paid campaign. So I think generally what we do is we do text ad campaigns, we do retargeting, we do what's called match audience campaigns. So meaning you can get your ICP, list of emails with your ICP, you can target those. And then my favorite one is what's called the thought leadership ad, where you can ask your customers maybe your customer talks about your product on LinkedIn, and you will boost their post essentially, and there's some sort of benefit to increase their reach. Let's say it's an agency, right? So an agency that uses your product or whatever, so they have some sort of benefit if I would actually increase their reach, and they're totally happy with all the ad spend that you're giving them to boost their reach. So this is just on a paid front, yeah, we would always test, like as long as the ICP, right, the ideal customer is there. So when it comes to tactics to amplify the content, so there are definitely the hook naturally, right? So the hook kind of massively increase the engagement. So highly recommend to think about what should be the hook. It's kind of make or break when it comes to your post. The other kind of little hack that everybody pretty much does that I know, who's like the top influencers, so even much bigger than I am. But the top influencers would actually repost their current post. So just reposting your own post, like at least like 1, 2, maybe 3 times during the same day. Because for some reason, by clicking the repost button, it increases your reach. So let's say you are based in Europe, right? And let's say you post, I don't know, during lunchtime in Europe, and then you post it, let's say at 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. again, right? So the US wakes up. And then you would post again at 6 p.m. before you would wrap up in the office. So like you could definitely like repost a couple of times. So if your post is going well, you definitely want to kind of boost it with the reposting. I think the other thing that you can do, and quite nicely, I think, in the comments section to amplify maybe the reach and the impact of your post, is you can tag the people, maybe the customers or thought leaders in that space that would associate with the stuff that you're talking about in the post. Let's say the pain that you're talking about, or I don't know, like let's say I'm going again to Berlin, for example, I would tag some people in Berlin. Are you in Berlin, guys? Are you available? Like, this is something that you could do just to amplify the content that you already put a lot of effort into. One thing that people kind of get it wrong, sometimes they see that the post is definitely not landing at all, like the reach is like horrible. Sometimes it actually makes sense that you delete the post and you repost like after an hour or two, and then it sometimes literally kicks off after that for whatever the reason. There's sometimes the algorithm is very naturally unknown, but in terms of how it operates. But sometimes the posts just don't fly, even though you invest so much time into this. So if you feel like in the first few minutes nothing's happening, just delete it and do it again after some time. Now, the other final hack I'm going to say what other people do. It's very important that you get a ton of engagement on your post within the first sort of hour. This is the most critical time to literally the most critical time to really make sure that your post flies. So you want to do whatever you can to make people like your post, essentially engage, say whatever. So all like saving, reposting, all of that can definitely get your post amplified. Even like messaging maybe some of your friends, hey, what do you think about this post, whatever, like. But you have to kind of be very smart about this. This is what literally the most sophisticated people do, which is why they have a ton of reach, because they go and reach out to people. They have some engagement pods. Like, I don't do the engagement pods, but I you can get definitely boosted from that. And what else was there? Something else, but like there's definitely strategy. Oh, the final one. This is one person that I've learned this from literally a couple of weeks ago. What he does is he says that it's very important that you sort of warm up your LinkedIn profile like 20-30 minutes prior to the actual launch of the post. So what that means is, let's say we're launching at 2 p.m. We want to make sure that we start essentially commenting on a lot of people, or on our friendlies, essentially commenting on their post for like 20-30 minutes, or let's say at 1:30. And for 20-30 minutes, you're just posting it, right? You're essentially becoming active. So you're warming up the profile for a bit, and then you launch the post. And then after the post, you spend another 30 minutes to an hour to make sure that the engagement kind of flies. And this is literally the strategy of what a lot of people do. They warm up, launch, and then for another 30 minutes, 30 to an hour, then they try to get engagement. And it's super important that whenever a person that naturally comments on your post, that you immediately reply to that comment immediately. Even if it's like a negative post, you definitely want to reply, and you want to make sure there's a bit of a mini conversation happening. And maybe the final thing that comes to mind that I've seen, because there's all these things that I've seen that makes a difference, is that immediately after you post your main post, right, in the comments, then immediately you have, let's call it a sub post. So essentially, it's like a second post that is somehow associated to your main post, and you literally post that as a comment. And sometimes on that comment, on the sub post that's in the comment section, you get so much more engagement than on the main post. So essentially, there's two pieces of content. So this is what the top people do. There's actually two pieces of content that are available. One is the main piece of content, and then in the comment section. So that's what I've seen people doing, and they're super successful. They're growing like crazy, and eventually then a lot of brands reach out to them for them to become creators, like B2B influencers. You name it. So yeah.
Thanks, Frank, for this insight. I love that, and I already adopted a few of these tactics, but I also learned a lot here. Maybe I'll just one last element. Like after the posts, I do believe there is a real opportunity to leverage people in the comments, people that like the post, and capture these people through their LinkedIn, find their emails, and engage with them in like an outreach sequence. I do it in Folk, but there are multiple ways to approach that. And yeah, like I think it's also a quite interesting workflow in order to leverage the content of the post, because you know that these people have engaged with such a content in order to create a discussion. And my sales team usually do that. Maybe we'll switch to the fourth question, which is, would love to hear, like, are you integrating social channels? How does this I'd say mix up integrate with the other channels of Salesforce, of your business?
So other channels. So like one thing that was already mentioned by a person that commented, right? So pay campaigns. So I guess we would look at, so if here's an example. So let's say a post is like really flying, so you can see it's going viral, and sometimes the virality goes either for 24 hours and sometimes for a whole week. I had a post that were literally going viral for a whole week. And then what you want to do is you want to get as much as organic reach as you can, and then after some time you can literally boost your own post if your post is like really solid. So this is where I would say, so okay, I've done a really good job on social selling, and then it would boost it maybe for another week or so to get additional reach. So this is how it integrates social selling. Now, the other part of social, I already mentioned this. Try and get the friendlies, your customers, maybe your partners, etc., to talk about your product, or whenever you see them talking about the product, you're like, damn, let's boost this post. This is such a cool post, right? So they've done a bit of social selling, right? And they're just talking about how they're solving their own problems and somehow they mention our tech somehow, and you really like their post, so you just reach out to them and say, hey, are you okay if I would boost your post, right? So this is how I think about combining. So you already mentioned, Simo, that you're using email, so definitely can be done as well, right? So you're just thinking of other ways to capitalize on that. And then other channels, naturally, what typically happens is you have the custom button on your LinkedIn profile, right? So anyway, somebody enters your profile, they see this custom button, so essentially a URL, and you definitely want to make sure that a conversion happens from that. So let's say you have your website, you can lead to your homepage, but I typically would say try and do lead capture.
Yes.
So let's say try and land them like on a lead magnet, right? So from your LinkedIn profile, it goes to the next step, let's say on your website or directly on a lead magnet, right? And there's kind of lead capture that could happen, or you could figure out, could de-anonymize traffic. What other people do is, so these are influencers, they would actually have their own newsletter. So they're trying to transition, let's say, the traffic from when they do social selling over to a newsletter. So maybe you could do that if you have like a super valuable newsletter, which is free, people can sign up and kind of learn more. So for example, if I'm doing, if I'm talking about outbound all the time, I could have a newsletter on all things outbound, right? Unfortunately, I don't have time to do that, but like if that's what I would do, right? So I would create an outbound, and then once a week, a newsletter would go out and people can sign up and learn all the growth hacks that I would do on the outbound front. So this is how you kind of think about linking. How do I link social selling, and how do I actually, give maybe more value to the users, or how do I get, kind of slowly but surely kind of transition them down the funnel, right? So lead magnet, I think, works well. Anything has worked for you, Simo?
That's a very good point. Yeah, well, I would say that like overall, I see the presence of social media for my business as like a way to expose my brand, and I'm the ambassador of the brand, but there are like multiple other ambassadors of the brands. And the first thing is that I encourage my team to post as well. I encourage them to post as well, each of them on their specific topic, but I share learnings. Whenever someone posts, we will make sure everyone will engage with their posts. So we try to we call that the Avenger strategy. Rather than having one hero trying to beat the others alone, we play as Avengers. I'd say this is the first thing. The second thing is I think it complemented quite well with first encouraging your customers to post when they love you, and this can go with like offering them some credits on the platform because we need more credits, and I think it helps like create this social media momentum. The third thing is we have a lot of affiliates. They also post about our product because they are taking a part of the revenue that they generate with us. And the last thing is we sometimes work with influencers, and all these people are posting on the same platform basically. It helps create momentum. I think like momentum is very important. So I would say this is the first thing, and then as you mentioned, like finding like complementarities between channels. For example, like leveraging a post you did in order to start an outreach campaign, or boosting with ads some posts that were done by customers on the platform, or this comes to mind. I think it makes a lot of sense.
So one thing that you mentioned is like around your team. Maybe one question to you, because I have no idea. Do you incentivize your team somehow to post? Because I know people struggling it's always a struggle to get your team to post on LinkedIn. Do you incentivize in one way or the other? So like run a little competition or whatever?
I don't incentivize in a very concrete way, but we just create a culture where like it's easy to like we encourage people to do it by showing by example, by leading by example, by sharing some tips, and by encouraging them where they show up on LinkedIn by being the first comment and the first likes, and then it's just like a muscle that you need to build, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was thinking, because we have some members of the team that do, a lot of social selling, and particularly those that are in sales, right? They have a benefit, but the other ones are really struggling, and they're not like super motivated about it. So I'm trying to figure out I guess a way to incentivize them, whether that's a cash incentive or whatever other incentive. That's what I'm currently going through my mind and trying to implement actually this month, funny enough, because I'm just trying to, because I know the benefit. Like if like 2x or 3x more people would just post something on LinkedIn. It doesn't have to be about our business, right? But they would post consistently on LinkedIn. And because, they're associated with our brand, it has a value to the brand, but they're just either, doesn't matter what the reason is, lazy, or they don't really know, or they're shy, whatever the reason is, right? So, but if I could incentivize them one way, of course I can train them, but still what I find that even though they're going to listen to all the best practices on social selling, even though you're going to explain the benefits, building their own brand and etc., they're still not going to do it, right? So then I'm trying to think, how do I, kind of poke them a bit more, sort of in a structured manner. And if you have any tips, do share with me, but or anybody in the audience, if anybody has done that as well. So super keen to hear. So just one thing I'm kind of conscious. So we had a few questions. If anybody has more questions, please do ask them. We definitely have a bit more to go through. Maybe on the tooling front. So I think immediately that I'm thinking social selling. Yeah, immediately I'm thinking of Folk, right? So you have a bunch of different things. So one thing that you already mentioned. Anything else that you want to mention on kind of the stuff that really works, that you find that really works right now?
I think like one habit that is very, very efficient is whenever you start building a relationship with someone on LinkedIn or like on WhatsApp or whatever, and you feel that the relationship start being like interesting, adding this person to your CRM. And making sure that you have like future tasks, be it to engage like in a few weeks, in a few months, depending of like the realities of the relationship and of your business. And over time, you build that list of people that you have engaged with across channel with the history of relationship. I think that's very helpful, and we have built something to do it fairly easily. Because you capitalize on like a database of relationships that are relevant to you, with whom you already have a touch point, and on which you can like double down whenever there is like the right opportunity. That makes sense.
Well, just one way to it's not a tool. There's a lot of tools that can help you maybe post on LinkedIn, schedule, etc. There are some people that talk about, if you're using these sort of scheduling tools, that actually has negative impact on your performance. So I personally, for example, try and schedule literally manually. Sorry, not schedule, just post essentially at a particular hour, right? So I'm kind of testing. I don't have a conclusive data whether scheduling has a negative impact or not, or so that's something that I'm doing. But one tool that I've started using sort of 4 weeks ago, and I think it makes sense. It's a Chrome extension called Creator Match. So if you just search for Creator Match as a Chrome extension, you essentially will be able to see top performing posts of particular creators on LinkedIn, and you can just try and see what actually works for them. And what sort of posts resonate, etc. And you can try and kind of, I guess, replicate some of that success, right, within your profile. Actually, one thing that I do, so the people that I really like and that have a ton of engagement, I just go on their profile and look at all their posts, and I'm just trying to find patterns, essentially. What is it that they do? So there's this one guy, his name is Jan. So Jan is an account exec at a company called Player. And if you just look at all his posts, the main thing that he does is just a selfie of himself in every single post. And for whatever reason, when you do a selfie of yourself, it has a super high engagement rate. I don't know why, but it seems like, when people look at you and it's a selfie, they kind of, are more likely to click on the like button, whatever, comment, etc. So that for some reason works. So essentially don't do anything when it comes to an image apart from a selfie. That should work quite well. So that's something actually I haven't tried yet, because I would need to make a lot of selfies of myself, and I don't know, I feel a bit awkward actually just having a bunch of selfies, but I still want to give that a go as a test for like a week or two, just have a bunch of selfies of me, and just see how that kind of pan out. But that's again something that you can also test. Just view essentially the post essentially by that individual to see what is their strategy. So
we are excited to view the selfie of you, Frank. Very excited for that.
No, but because these selfies have to be like in different locations, right? You are on the road show, or you are whatever it is that you're doing. But selfies definitely, everybody agrees, right? In the creative communities, if you do a ton of selfies, big face, big smile, or you're doing something like this or whatever, so it for some reason performs people, like there's a saying, right? People buy from people, right? And that whenever you see the face of the other person, even though it's a selfie, for some reason, there's better engagement. Okay.
Cool.
So one thing, so naturally we covered all the five questions. So I just want to kind of briefly show, things that happen on a LinkedIn profile. Just quickly, just kind of inspire people. So anybody can go on my profile and kind of have a look. But I just want to briefly just touch upon the post that did go a bit more viral. And then we can wrap it unless somebody has a question. So let's do that quickly. So you can see here we're already live here. It's a bit of a interesting sort of you can see yourself here, but you can see essentially the post that I have featured that essentially did like really, really well for whatever the reason is. So and each of the posts has some sort of a strategy. So we actually spent some time to do that. So here, for example, I did what's called an apology letter. So we would apologize to the whole audience about the efficiencies that we're driving to sales rep, and suddenly they have more time on their hands, So you make it kind of really funny, essentially. But at the same time, what you're doing with this is you are educating your audience about your product. So that's the one example. Feel free to replicate it, by the way. Anything that you're seeing in front of you, I don't mind. You don't even have to credit me. That doesn't matter. The other thing that we do some sort of, so this is like an example where you said, Simo, like try to stay away from features. But we, for example, have integrated with a company called Clay.com. And because Clay is such a big beast in the space when it comes to data aggregation, etc., we did like a really cool gift with them, etc. And that has also driven quite a lot of engagement. But instead of having a typical post, what we've done is I've said I'm starting a new position. So starting a new position, we've seen that you can have a slightly better engagement by having a different post type. So if you want to figure out how to do that, just Google it. It's quite easy to do. So that's another example. Then the other example I would just want to give, where we spent quite a bit of time, is where we actually did a scene from Wolf of Wall Street. So we have launched LinkedIn recently, and what we decided to do is take that scene where Jordan essentially is talking about, he's essentially selling the penny stocks, right? So, and we took that scene and we would talk about, us launching LinkedIn on top of cold email as a channel. So it also went quite well. I would say what you definitely want to not look at is not necessarily how many impressions or engagement you've got, but what was the pipeline, I guess, impact from that, right? Because what you will find is that when you have a ton of engagement, it actually doesn't drive that much pipeline. And you will find the posts that may be highly relevant to your ICP and have a lot less engagement, they actually, from a pipeline standpoint, perform much better than, for example, this post, right? So the apology post. So we do see that. And then the other two things I just want to mention is doing lead magnets. So some people like lead magnets, some people don't like lead magnets. So while they still work, we would do them. So here's a lead magnet that we prepared for like a week or two. So we built a lead magnet. And so the lead magnet is essentially a file where you provide a ton of value for the audience. And that is essentially, so for example, what we do is we book about 500 demo calls on a monthly basis. And we just want to share some of the things that, that we do to book those 500 plus demos, right? So, so you can see that I did this sort of an image. It works, quite well if you can see a fully slammed calendar. And you would talk about success, so that success, that outcome is, hey, I booked 500 plus demos last month. Just make sure that you're not lying. Super important that you are not lying about what it is that you do. Because it will backfire. So the lead magnet is a bit of a double-edged sword, because so you will say, hey, this is what I did, and do you want to get my lead magnet? Please say comment AI to get that lead magnet, right? So you get generating a lot of engagement. And what do we have here? We had here about 300K in impressions. And so if the lead magnet, right? So imagine you access that resource, and you read through the Notion doc, and then you realize actually, damn, it's really horrible. Then it will backfire. So it's very important that resource is super valuable. So you look at it and say, damn, we shared at least 5 to 10 things that we believe is valuable. And there's at least one thing that we believe that's in the document that will be super valuable for the individual. So just don't do it if you have nothing that's like super valuable to share. So yeah, that's one lead magnet. So this just talks about, you know,
I love the insight, Frank. I love the example. Real life example are very helpful.
Yeah, and just the final one. So you can, this is a slightly different example. So you can build like a lead magnet or a piece of content that's related to a particular trend. So that trend right now that exists in the space is N8N, right? So a lot of companies are building N8N and workflows. So we're also building. We have like 300 N8N workflows right now live. And so you can latch on the trend because a lot of people want to build these workflows. Because we have 300, we would just say we're going to share the 10 most powerful that we believe will be valuable to the LinkedIn audience. And again, you build a lead magnet and you would say what you would do, what are the lead magnets in there. You're trying to entice them, and again, to comment. So you can see we got like 100K impressions. But like, again, don't optimize for impressions as per se. Sometimes the posts that have significantly lower engagement generate a ton more. That's what we find actually. So just kind of think of it from that standpoint. So yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's all we have for you guys.
Thank you so much for the
somebody
time.
wants to ask a question. What's that?
No, I was saying thank you so much. I think I learned as well from this session. It was very helpful. Thanks to the audience for being there. And yeah, let's close some account through social selling.
Yeah, exactly. Simo, final thing, how people can find you? What's the best way?
Well, on LinkedIn, or you feel free to reach out to me by mail, simo@follow.app. And yeah, if you ever need a CRM that's modern and connected to your world, feel free to have a look at Folk.
Excellent. Same here, Frank Saunders. You can find me on LinkedIn. The guy with the bacon emoji comes from the saying, bringing home the bacon. So somebody's wondering why there's a bacon emoji on the profile of that person. So yeah, hopefully this was valuable. This will be available on YouTube. And so yeah, thanks so much, Simo. Cheers.
Thank you. Ciao, ciao.